Well, hello, good afternoon everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing fantastic out there. In this video today, we're going to fix this Dewalt DCS578 Circular Saw. Now I have another one of these that I love. This is a wonderful circular saw. It's a Flex Volt saw, so that means it requires the large Flex Volt batteries. So when I purchased this on eBay, it was sold as is, not running for parts. But it looked like it was in good condition, so I went ahead and put the bid in and I won the bid, and long behold, when the saw arrived, it did not run. And I quickly learned why it didn't run. The previous owner thought that they were going to probably convert this over to a DCS570 like this, the 20 volt saw, or the DCS573, which is the Flex Volt Advantage saw. I get the feeling that the previous owner of this 578 thought that they were going to make one of these. In other words, I think they were going to try to run this saw off of the 20 volt batteries. Because if you look right here, you see these two screws. Just ignore those two screws there for a second. If you look right here, you can see that the rear posts are ground down. Okay, so it looks very similar to the battery placement on the 570 here. So when I got the saw, the first thing I did was I put the regular 20 volt battery in, and it did slide in. It won't now because those posts that I put in are in the way. But when the 20 volt battery went in, the saw did not run. So to test the saw to make sure that it even works or not, I put those two screws in to mimic the posts that are required for this Flex Volt battery to work. Now, for some of you that might not understand the way these Flex Volt batteries work, there's these two little tabs right here. Those tabs correspond to the battery here, and what happens is they push this little switch in. When those tabs push that switch in, it turns this battery from a 20 volt battery to a 60 volt battery. Now what it does is it changes it from being wired in parallel, which would be a 20 volt 9 amp battery, but when you push these in, this switch, it changes the wiring from parallel to a series, and then you get the 60 volt at 3 amp battery. So you have to have those little studs to push that switch to get the 60 volts. So that is why I put those two little screws in there, so I could test the saw and see if it'll run with the Flex Volt battery. As you can see, it does run. So once I figured that out, I knew that I needed to replace the plastic housing on the saw, and that's what we're going to do today. So I purchased a housing right here, and in this video we're going to replace this. We're going to put the new housing on this saw, and that's what it looks like, just like that. But you notice when you put these together, look at this part right here. That's all the stuff that they grinded down. They grinded that flat. And that's why the saw doesn't work. They probably thought that if they ground that stuff down, that it would operate like the Flex Volt Advantage, the DCS573, or the DCS570, the one that I have here. But it didn't work for them, apparently. They sold the thing and I won it on eBay. I do have another one. It's the identical saw, but it's up the hill. We're in the process of building a tiny house up there. I'm going to go ahead and start by taking off this blade bolt. Take that off. I'm going to take the washer off, just like that. And I have this little magnetic tray. I'm going to just start putting parts in there. The next thing I need to do is take off the small snap ring that you see right inside of there. I'm going to take that snap ring off. So to do that, I'm going to bring in these snap ring pliers. Let's go ahead and lower this guard down so it's kind of out of the way. We're just going to go right onto that snap ring and just take it off. Something like that. Now we got the snap ring off. Now the inner washer can come out. And from here, we're going to take this one out right here. I have a small set of Torx bits right here. And I think that's going to be a T25, I think. So let's try that. T25. Yes, it's going to be a T25. So we'll go ahead and put that in. We'll go ahead and take that bolt out. There we go. Now we can just drop the blade guard off. We'll leave the spring with it. It's got a nice ball bearing. We want to make sure we're filling that ball bearing and see that the ball bearing is good, which it is. So the next thing we want to do is bring that T25 right here and take this nut out, this bolt rather. Put it in our little pan. Now we'll loosen this all the way up, and then we'll just keep loosening it until we take this stud out. So I have the little handle, and then that releases this little bolt and this washer. So there's a washer and then there's a little bolt. So we'll just kind of keep all that stuff together right there. So what we need to do here is get to this bolt right here, but we need something small to back up this little nut here. Okay, there it is. It's a 5/16. It appears that I will be able to do this by hand, so I don't think I'll need to bring any power tools in because this nut is coming off. There's the nut. It fell off. Little nylon lock nut there. Now we'll just pop that through. Pop that bolt through. I like how they did this because on other models they like to use rivets right there. I like that they swapped it out and put a bolt on here. And the 570 has a bolt there too. So very nice. I'm glad to see that. So at this point, the shoe can come off of the saw. So there's 3 big bolts right here. 1, 2, 3 that are the T25, and the rest of these are, I think, T20s. And we're going to take off all these T20s. Starting with these 2 that hold the rafter hook. 1, 2. And the process of taking these saws apart is identical with the DCS570 and the 573. So now we need to go down to, it appears to be a 15. We're going to go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let's see if we can snag that one. Nope, we'll have to go back up to the 20 for that one. There's that one. So you see I have all the hardware there. Set that right there. Now we'll go back to our T25 and we'll take those 3 big ones off. One, 2, come on, and 3. Now technically I could have ran the saw the way it sits right now, but I just didn't want to run it that way. I'm going to go ahead and throw all this hardware back in here. Now I did miss one, and that's on this little piece here. So I think that one might be the 20. Take the 20. There's a little bolt in there. And then once you get that off, this just slides off. I'll just put it right there with the little knob so I don't forget which one it is. So that goes there. Now at this point, you see I just lifted this housing straight up, straight off of there. There's nothing in here left. If you look at the little spring here, when they put a battery in, you can see that this thing's kind of like spring loaded. So there's that little spring right there. You got to take that out. Put that in our little tray. Then all of this stuff can kind of come out. That's kind of interesting how that sits right there. On other models, there's a little controller that sits there. So that's kind of neat that they have this piece, kind of different. So that sits just like so. Just put it there for now. And we'll go ahead and take the T20, take the switch off. This is the screw that holds the switch. So this little piece slides out. Make sure you don't lose that little spring there. The little spring sits on that little stud right there. So when you push it in, it springs back and forth. So you don't want to miss that. Okay, let's go ahead and pull these 3 screws out. These are the T20. There's one. I'll just set those close. Make sure you hang on to this thing because these could be tight. 2. And 3. That's those 3 there. We'll lift the gear out. Don't lose the O-ring. Set that right there. So let's go ahead and get this little LED one out and see what's underneath that. Is that a 20? Yes, it is. So we'll pull that off. That's the LED cover. Okay, so we'll leave the screw with that. And we do have this little piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and just pull it out. It does look like we probably needed to, because that was into the plastic. Okay, from here I'm going to just firmly grab this motor and I'm going to wiggle it and pull it straight up out of the tool. And it's got a pretty heavy duty magnet in there, because we want to make sure that we're releasing this connection right here, which will allow the LED to stay put, and just pull that straight up out of there. This is the stator. And there's the rotor. It's a very strong magnet. And once you get that out, you can see one screw right there. We're going to go ahead and release that screw. That will let us take off the housing. That screw fell. Here's what that screw looks like. Grab a hold of the rotor. Pull the rotor straight up out of there. This part is spring loaded, so we want to be careful with that. We're just going to kind of push and just pull all of this out. Just like that. Now, if we take this part right here, just like this. Okay, from here we're going to push this housing out of the way. We will get the new housing. Make sure it's the new one, the one that's not damaged. And we're going to use the LED. So we need the LED to be in this angle, like so, just like that. And when we stick the wire through, we're just going to pass the wire straight through, just like this. So the wire is going to stick up out of this hole, nice and proud right there. Okay, nothing big. Now when we put this little LED cover on, it's got these little angles right here, and what those angles do is they help orient the LED into the right orientation. Okay, so we're going to just pop this cover into place, and now you can see that with that cover, the LED goes in the right position by default. From here, we'll go ahead and put the screw in. Doesn't have to be super tight, it's just holding the LED cover on. Nothing too crazy. But again, we got the LED in, And now if we flip the housing over, you can see the LED wire just comes straight up like this. Okay. Now the next step is probably the hardest part in this whole process, in my opinion, and that is putting this spring and this lever and all this stuff on to the housing and getting the housing onto the new plastic housing. Okay, so this part can be a little bit cumbersome. So let me show you the trick that I've learned. What we have to have here is the spring has to sit like this on this side. See where it's grabbing like that? And the screw goes through like this, and this portion of the spring has to ride on this flat portion of the housing. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, so I'll just put that in a turn or two. So this is what we want to achieve, this kind of a spring-loaded thing. But it's kind of difficult to do that when you have to put the plastic housing on. So to do this, to accomplish this, what I generally do is I'll set the spring on there just like that. I'll take the new housing and I'll set the new housing right into position. So bear with me, it takes a second to line everything up. Don't worry about the spring down there, just kind of push through with my finger and make sure that it's off the housing. You can see that our LED wire fits very nicely right there. We do have the spring in the right orientation. Now we need to put the lever in. So the part that we push on the lever with our finger, we're just going to feed that through till it comes out of this little hole. So something like this. And we're going to go ahead and just put the bolt in to hold the lever in place, even though the spring is not in the right position yet. We're just going to put the screw in anyway, put it in fairly tight so it holds that lever in. Make sure that the lever is nice and free. Now at this point, we're going to look right down here at the spring, and we need to get that hook of the spring to hook on this side right here, not this far side, this side closest to the center of the tool. So this is a little bit tough to do, so I'm just reaching through with the screwdriver here. I'm going to try to push it down and hopefully I'll get it into the right orientation. Don't give up on this step, folks, because this is a difficult step, but it's not impossible. It's just a matter of getting that spring where it pokes through and grabs the correct side of this little lever here. So bear with me. There, we're getting close. There we go. Now you can see the spring is grabbing. We can push the button and making sure that the button bounces away nice and easily. Everything feels good and looks good. Now we can move on. So now that we have all of this correct and this spring is happy, we can go ahead and take the rotor and drop the rotor right back in. Just kind of push it until it feels nice and clean. From here, we can take our motor, and remember this is going to be a magnetic feeling. We're going to just drop the motor straight down and making sure that we line these three holes that we have coming through, 1, 2, 3, with the 3 tabs on the motor. Okay, so we're going to just drop this in. It's a very powerful magnet. It's going to pull the thing downward. So we'll just kind of rest it down, let it go until we get this thing into position. So there we have it. From here, we're going to route the LED wire. And let's find the LED connection, which is right here. We'll make that little connection. Just like so. We'll route the LED wire. And route any of these other wires if we need to get them like out of the way or anything like that. This is the point which we would do that. You can put these wires just about anywhere you want, but we do need to make sure that they're nice and clean and everything's out of the way, and we don't want anything crazy, nothing positioned wrong. You don't want the housing to be sitting on any of these wires or clamping down on any of these wires when you put this tool back together. So you want everything to be as clean as possible and lined up nice and well, if you can, as best as you can, to getting it right back to the way it was when we took it apart. So like that little capacitor needs to sit there nice and clean. Let's just kind of hide these wires down here. Everything needs to be kind of hidden and tight. Make sure wires are routed correctly. We do have the little screw that holds the switch into place, so we'll just kind of set that in there, and don't put it too tight yet because we still have to fix all of this stuff. Remember, we have all this stuff that needs to rest like that. We're going to set that like that. We have that little spring thing that we had. It's in here somewhere. This holds the little battery portion in. So we'll put that little spring in. And we're just going to try to get everything kind of lined up as clean as we can. Route these wires so that they don't sit. You don't want a wire sitting on a spot where, you know, a screw's going to go or something like that. So you want to route the wires as clean as you can. Get everything tucked away. Take the time right now on this step. Don't rush this step because you want to make sure everything's clean and pretty, lined up well. Like this white wire, it doesn't look right to me. Let's lift it up and slip it over. Just slide it down. Slide that black one down, the red and the blue. Slide that down. Remember our little knob. Remember, that's got to go a certain way. We want to line that up. Make sure that we're working there. Let's see, do I have it lined up correctly? There we go. So once you got that lined up, you can go ahead and lock down this switch. Just like that. And then you can even take the other housing, kind of drop it into place and see if it fits. Is everything nice and smooth? Everything should be smooth. There shouldn't be anything that requires any kind of major pushing or anything like that. Things should fall naturally right into place. So if you find yourself having to push hard or anything like that, something's not right. Just double check everything and make sure that everything just kind of falls naturally. Look at that, it fell naturally pretty much into place. There's a little something hung up right here. There it goes. There, nice clean clamshell design. So that looks good. Make sure that you test the button on both sides, and that looks good. So now we can start putting the housing back together with some of these screws. You don't want to put too many of them. Let's start with those 3 big ones that are going to hold the motor together. So these guys right here, we'll just drop those. 1, 2, and 3. And those are the T25s. So we'll just drop those down. And I'm not going to make this super tight. I just have my clutch on 5. That'll give me enough to pretty much hold the tool together so that I can work on this end over here. Remember, we have our little O-ring, so we want to just set the O-ring right in here. Make sure that it doesn't get smashed or pinched or anything. Just set it right there, nice and careful. Take the gear, and let's put the gear on. Something like this. We'll just kind of rotate that thing, spin it a little bit. There we go. We're good. Now we have these 3 screws. I think these are going to be the T20s. We'll get rid of the 25. We'll put the T20 on. And we'll put those 3 screws in. There's 1, 2, and 3. And make sure that you look at this and make sure everything's nice and flat. Make sure that this turns. In fact, you can even take a battery and run it from here if you want, just to make sure that everything is spinning. Sounds good to me. So now that we know that we're running, we're going to go ahead and continue putting this thing together. So we will start with the shoe. We'll just get the shoe on there. Remember, we had the special bolt that goes onto the shoe. It's got that nice shoulder that goes like that, and then there was a little nut. Okay, so we have the little nut, which is going to go right here, right on the inside. We're just going to tighten that in a little bit. Just tighten it in by hand. And so far, this is coming together very well. We'll get this here. Give it a little bit of a snug. Doesn't have to be gorilla tight. We're going to go ahead and back this other side up. And there we go. That looks good enough to me, as long as we can go up and down freely, which we can. Now we want to take this piece with its screw, and it sets right here. Let me move this shoe out of the way so you can see. So this piece, it's going to go right here, just like that. Nothing crazy. It's a pretty simple piece. We'll just put that on. That's all we need. This piece goes just like that. Okay, it's going to be this piece here. It's a carriage looking bolt. It's going to go on the inside. And then on the other side, right here, we want to put the little flat washer. Just like that. So once you get that put together, you can take this portion, stick it through the housing, and then just start tightening it. And then loosen it, and then just make sure that everything is free right here and that you can hand tighten it. Once you know that you can hand tighten it, you want to take this little bolt and this little knob, and let's loosen it, flatten it down. So when you tighten this, you want to make sure that you're not able to tighten it down too far, where it's not going to go too far. But you do want it to go up real nice and easy. So that looks good to me. We'll go ahead and put the little bolt in there. Got that. Now we have our little handle. Remember, our handle had its own little screw. We'll just slip that on just like that. Drop the screw in there. And we'll get the handle on. Now we'll switch bits and we'll go back to the T15 right here, and we have quite a few things that we need to put on. Okay, we got these screws. There's 5 of them. These are the little T15s, so they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Two, 3, 4, 5. We do have these 2 a little bit thicker screws. These go to the rafter hook. So your rafter hook sits like this, folded in and out of the way, and then we have these 2 that hold the rafter hook. So those are going to be T20s. Put the 15 out of the way, and let's get the T20s on there. There's the rafter hook. Now we have this bolt that goes right down into here, and it catches the bottom of the motor. There we go. Now if we flip the saw over, we can start working on the blade guard. So I like to open it up all the way. Let's go ahead and take a look at the blade guard. So we want to put this spring right here in this hole here. So we'll just kind of set that all into place. Just kind of find that big hole there. Put that in there, and then make sure that everything is springing good. And if it is, we'll put this washer in place. Remember, we have a snap ring that holds this washer into place. So we'll just get the little snap ring there. Hopefully my fingers aren't in the way. There we go. And that just holds that in place so we don't lose our piece there. This is going to go here. We'll tighten this down. Now we'll take this and put it right here. Tighten it down. And that'll stop our blade guard from here. We can make sure everything's nice and tight and things are looking good. Okay, to finish up this process, I do have 2 more screws that go right here, 1, 2. So I'll just put those in. I think those are going to be the T15. So let's get this one right here. Let's put those 2 in. Right there, T15. And the last one is going to go right here. And then of course, let's go ahead and flip this saw over. And let's go ahead and put a blade on the saw. We'll take the nut out. Take this outer washer out. I don't know if I can get my finger under that. There we go. And let's just put a Avanti Pro 7 1/4 24 tooth on there. This one does not require a knockout like the DCS577 does. So we'll go ahead and tighten this down. Use our 1/2 inch here, and we're going to go ahead and test our button and make sure that our shaft lock button works as we tighten this down. And it looks like the shaft lock works good. And from here, now that we're finished, we'll just make sure everything works good. How's our tilt? Positive stops are good. This is going up and down. Rafter hook pops out. Everything looks good. Now let's go ahead and take a battery and see how this saw sounds. Sounds good. Very nice. Now let's go cut a piece of wood. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Working well. Well folks, that's all there is to it. It looks like the saw is working great. I want to say thank you guys for joining me today on this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you got some useful information out of it. If there's any questions about these stickers being transferred over to the new saw, I'm not too worried about that. But still, I hope you got some good useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below. Like this video, share this video. And until next time, everybody, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody.